A stranger on the internet just said something about you, and it's going to ruin your afternoon. You don't know them, you'll never meet them. Their opinion has zero effect on your job, your relationships, your actual life, and yet it's sitting in your chest right now like a stone. You already know this reaction doesn't make sense. Someone whose name you'll forget by tomorrow shouldn't have this much power over how you feel today, but knowing that doesn't make the sting go away. Here's the real reason it hurts. It's not about that specific stranger at all. It's about a wound detection system in your brain that's millions of years old, and it can't tell the difference between a person who matters and a person who doesn't. Let's start with the strangest fact in this whole story. Your brain processes social rejection using some of the same regions it uses to process physical pain. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger ran a landmark study on this using a simple digital ball tossing game. Participants played what they thought was a normal game with two other players, until those players quietly started excluding them, tossing the ball back and forth without ever including the third person again. While this happened, Eisenberger scanned their brains. The region that lit up in response to being left out was the same region that activates when your body experiences physical injury. Being excluded didn't just feel bad. Your brain treated it structurally like an injury. Why would evolution wire rejection to feel like an injury? Because for nearly all of human history, being cut off from your group wasn't an inconvenience. It was a death sentence. Alone, you couldn't defend against predators, share food during a bad season, or raise children with any real safety net. Your survival was tied directly to your standing within the group you belonged to. So the brain built an alarm system for social exclusion just as urgent as the one for physical harm. Pain that says, pull your hand off the fire, and pain that says, you're about to be cut off from the people keeping you alive, ended up running through overlapping circuitry because both were equally dangerous. That circuitry is still installed in you, unchanged right now. Psychologist Kipling Williams spent decades studying this exact phenomenon, which he named ostracism, and one of his most important findings is almost unbelievable. The pain of being excluded activates almost instantly, even when the exclusion is trivial, even when it comes from people the participant has never met, and even when participants are explicitly told beforehand that the other players aren't real people at all. Read that again. Even when your rational brain knows the rejection isn't real, the alarm still fires anyway. This is the part that explains the stranger's comment ruining your afternoon. Your ancient alarm system doesn't check credentials before it reacts. It doesn't ask, does this person's opinion actually affect my survival? It doesn't verify whether there's someone whose approval you need to keep eating, keep safe, keep alive. It just detects a signal that resembles rejection, and it fires the same ancient response it always has. For most of human history, this shortcut made sense, because almost everyone who could judge you was someone who mattered. Your ancestors lived in groups of perhaps 50 to 150 people. Every critical glance, every disapproving word, came from someone who could genuinely affect whether you ate that week or who you'd be allowed to marry. There was no such thing as a stranger whose opinion didn't matter, because there were no strangers in the modern sense at all. Everyone within range of your senses was, in some way, part of your survival network. Now hold that fact next to your life today. Every single day, your alarm system is exposed to judgment from thousands, sometimes millions, of people who will never affect your life in any real way. A comment from someone on another continent, someone with no connection to your food, your safety, your relationships, your future, triggers the exact same neural pain response as disapproval from someone in your ancestral village who controlled whether you'd survive the winter. Your brain has no category for stranger whose opinion is irrelevant. It was never built to need one. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman has spent years studying what he calls the social brain, arguing that human beings evolved to be fundamentally social creatures at a neurological level, not as an accident of culture, but as a core survival strategy. Lieberman's research suggests that monitoring social standing wasn't a minor feature bolted onto the human brain. It was one of the primary reasons the human brain grew as large and complex as it did. Which means the sting you feel from a stranger's comment isn't a personality flaw or a sign that you care too much about what people think. It's your brain running its single most central survival function, exactly as designed, on an input it has no way of correctly evaluating. So what do you actually do with a system like this? You can't switch it off, and trying to simply not care rarely works, because the alarm fires before the rational part of your brain even gets a vote. What actually helps, according to this same research, is recognizing the mismatch itself, naming what's happening in the moment. That's not a verdict on my worth. That's an ancient alarm mistaking a stranger for my tribe. Williams's research on ostracism found something else worth knowing. The sting fades faster in people who consciously reframe the exclusion as coming from someone outside their actual support network, someone who was never really part of the group that determines their safety in the first place. In other words, the fix isn't pretending the pain isn't real. It's accurately sorting your modern world back into categories your ancient brain never had to build. This person's opinion affects my life. This person's opinion doesn't. Your ancestors never had to make that distinction, because for them, it was almost never necessary. You do. So the next time a stranger's words land harder than they should, notice what's actually happening underneath the sting. It's not proof that they're right. It's not proof that something is wrong with you. It's a survival circuit built for a world of 50 faces, doing its best with a world of 8 billion. A stranger on the internet just said something about you, and for a moment, some ancient part of you believed your entire tribe had turned away. It hasn't. It never even knew you were there.